Imagine this. You work hard all week. You finally get a Saturday morning to yourself, you go out to your garage to tackle some yard work, and you realize you've been robbed, not by a stranger in the dead of night, but by the guy living right next door, the guy who smiles at you across the fence. For weeks, my neighbor was treating my backyard like his own personal gas station. He thought I was blind. He thought I was stupid. He thought he was getting away with the perfect petty crime. But what he didn't know was that I had set a trap. A trap so vile, so mechanically devastating, and so deeply personal that by the time he realized what he had put in his gas tank, it was already too late. And the best part? The ruined engine was only Act 1 of his nightmare. Welcome back to the channel. If you've ever had a neighbor from hell, someone who felt utterly entitled to your property, your peace, and your sanity, you are going to love this one. If you're ready to hear a story of petty theft met with nuclear-level, engine-destroying justice, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss our next story, and settle in. Because this is the tale of the golden gas can. Let me paint a picture for you. I'm a pretty simple guy. I don't ask for much out of life. A decent job, a quiet weekend, and the simple, meditative satisfaction of keeping my property looking nice. There is a specific kind of peace that comes from the smell of freshly cut grass, the hum of a well-maintained engine, and a cold drink on the patio when the work is done. My backyard was my sanctuary. It was fenced in, private, and mine. Enter my neighbor. For the sake of this story, let's call him Rick. Every neighborhood has a Rick. You know the type. Rick's property looked like a junkyard that had given up on life. Weeds knee-high, garbage bags sitting on the porch for days, and a rusted-out sedan in the driveway that always seemed to be leaking some mystery fluid. But Rick's aesthetic wasn't the problem. His attitude was. Rick had this suffocating aura of entitlement. He was the kind of guy who would borrow your tools and return them rusted, or accidentally park blocking your driveway. He was a walking, breathing boundary violation. But for the longest time, it was just low-level annoyance. Until the mystery of the vanishing gasoline began. It started in early summer. I had one of those classic, heavy-duty, 5-gallon red plastic gas cans. I'd fill it up at the local station, bring it home, and leave it tucked away neatly on my back patio behind the grill. A standard push mower has a tiny gas tank, maybe a quart, tops. A 5-gallon can should realistically last me an entire summer, maybe even into the fall. But suddenly, I was running dry. I'd go out on a Saturday morning, ready to knock out the chore. I'd pick up the red can and my stomach would drop. It was featherlight, empty, again. At first, the human brain tries to rationalize. Did I spill it? Is there a hole in the plastic? Did it evaporate in the heat? Did I mow more than I thought? For weeks, I gaslit myself. I questioned my own sanity. I found myself standing in the hardware store, buying my third fill-up in a single month, staring at the receipt and feeling this creeping, itchy sensation of suspicion. Gas doesn't just walk away, unless, of course, it has 2 legs and lives next door. I needed proof. But this wasn't the era of cheap, easily accessible Ring cameras or wireless 4K security setups you could buy on Amazon for $30. No. This was back in the day when if you wanted surveillance, you had to get creative. I had an old, clunky laptop with a built-in webcam. I downloaded some primitive, bare-bones motion detection software, the kind that looked like it was coded in a basement in 1998. I set the laptop up inside my house, right up against the back window, angling the camera perfectly through the blinds to frame the patio and that big red gas can. Then, the waiting game began. The very next Saturday, I decided to run an errand. I made sure Rick saw me leave. I gave him a polite nod, got in my car, and drove off. I was gone for maybe an hour. When I got back, my heart was pounding against my ribs. I practically sprinted to the laptop. I clicked open the software, and there it was, a single video file. The motion sensor had been triggered. I clicked play. The grainy, low-res video started. For a few seconds, nothing. Just my empty patio. And then, creeping into the frame like a rat looking for a discarded French fry, was Rick. He scurried over to my patio, grabbed my gas can with zero hesitation, and hurried back off-screen toward his property. I checked the timestamp on the video, 5 minutes. It had been literally 5 minutes since my car had pulled out of the driveway. He wasn't just stealing from me, he was watching me. He was waiting for me to leave. He was treating my backyard like an all-you-can-steal buffet, and he was completely comfortable doing it. Sitting there, watching that grainy footage, a cold, hard anger washed over me. You have to understand the feeling of violation here. It wasn't about the money. 5 gallons of gas is what, maybe 15, 20 bucks? It was the sheer audacity. It was the absolute lack of respect. He was invading my sanctuary. Now, most people would say, just confront him, go knock on his door and yell at him, or call the cops. But let's be real. What would the police do over a few dollars of siphonable fuel? Write a report that goes into a filing cabinet forever? Tell me to keep my gas can inside? And if I confronted Rick, I knew exactly how it would play out. Guys like Rick don't apologize. They deflect. They deny. He would just lie to my face, say he was borrowing it and meant to put it back, and then he'd hold a grudge and probably key my car in the middle of the night. No, a confrontation wasn't going to fix this. I needed a solution that would solve the problem permanently. I wanted him to punish himself. I wanted his own greed to be the architect of his destruction. And as I stared at that red plastic can through the window, an idea began to form. A terrible, brilliant, disgusting idea. Gasoline has a very distinct, overpowering smell. It's highly combustible, refined, and powerful. You know what isn't combustible? Urine. The plan required dedication. It required biological commitment. For the next 7 days, that 5-gallon gas can become my personal private restroom. Every morning when I woke up, straight to the patio, middle of the night bathroom break, out to the gas can, had a few beers in the evening. The can was waiting. I'm not going to lie, the process was absurd. Standing in my own backyard, under the cover of darkness, filling up a piece of lawn equipment with my own bodily fluids, I felt like a mad scientist brewing a potion of pure spite. By the end of the week, the can was heavy again. I had managed to fill it with a substantial amount of human waste. But here was the genius part. The residual gasoline at the bottom of the can, combined with the incredibly strong fumes soaked into the plastic itself, acted as the perfect camouflage. If you opened the cap, it didn't smell like a portable toilet. It still smelled intensely of unleaded gasoline. The scent was enough to fool anyone who wasn't paying close attention. And Rick? Rick was an idiot. The payload was ready. Now, I just needed to set the bait. Saturday morning arrived. The weather was perfect. Sunny, clear, exactly the kind of day a guy like Rick might want to cut his overgrown weeds, or more likely, take his beater car out for a spin. I put the heavy, full gas can right back in its usual spot on the patio. I made sure it was highly visible. Then, I began my performance. I opened my garage with a loud clatter. I started carrying travel bags out to my car, tossing them into the trunk with a heavy thud. I checked my oil, kicked my tires, and made a big, theatrical show of preparing for a long road trip. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the blinds in Rick's front window twitch. He was watching. The parasite was hungry. To really sell it, I called out to another neighbor across the street. "Yeah, heading out of town for the week. Gonna be gone a while. Catch you next weekend." I slammed the trunk, got in my car, and drove away. But I didn't go far. I drove exactly 2 miles down the road, pulled into a strip mall parking lot, grabbed a coffee, and killed exactly 1 hour. Just enough time for the rat to take the cheese. After 60 minutes, I drove back. I pulled into my driveway slowly, making my car chug a bit, pretending I was having engine trouble. I sighed heavily, grabbed my bags, and walked toward my front door, playing the part of the frustrated traveler whose trip had been canceled. But my eyes darted immediately to the back patio. The red gas can was still there, but the cap was slightly askew. I walked over, picked it up, and gave it a shake. Empty. Every single drop. He had taken it all. I didn't even have time to process my victory before the show began. From Rick's front yard, I heard the sound. The distinct, sputtering cough of a lawnmower trying to turn over. Chug, chug, sputter. Silence. I casually walked to my side window, parting the blinds just enough to get a front row seat to the masterpiece I had orchestrated. Rick was standing over his rusted-out push mower. He grabbed the pull cord and yanked. Sputter. Hiss. Silence. He yanked it again, harder this time. Now, if you know anything about small engines, you know they rely on precise combustion. A spark plug ignites a vaporized mixture of fuel and air. When you introduce a heavy, water-based acidic fluid, like, say, a gallon of week-old urine, into that delicate ecosystem, combustion doesn't just fail, it rebels. I watched Rick pull that cord 5, 6, 7 times. With every pull, his face turned a deeper shade of crimson. The veins in his neck were popping out. He looked like he was on the verge of a massive cardiovascular event. He was bracing his boot against the mower deck, ripping the cord with the fury of a man possessed. Finally, on the 10th pull, the mower gave a sick, wet pop. A pathetic plume of gray, awful-smelling smoke puffed out of the exhaust. The engine locked up entirely. It was dead. Utterly, permanently flooded with biological waste. Rick screamed a string of obscenities that echoed down the block, kicked the mower so hard he almost lost his balance, and stormed off. I was biting my fist to keep from laughing out loud, but the universe wasn't done dispensing justice yet. You see, a lawnmower tank only holds about a quart. My gas can had held much, much more than that. Rick hadn't just fueled his mower. About 20 minutes later, Rick stormed out of his house, keys in hand. He looked furious. He got into his rusted sedan, the one he was so proud of, the one that usually leaked oil all over the curb. He slammed the door, aggressively turned the key, and threw it into drive. The car lurched forward. Modern cars have fuel filters, fuel injectors, and highly sensitive sensors. When you pump a massive dose of raw human urine directly into the gas tank of a sedan, it doesn't just stop the car, it destroys the fuel delivery system. He sped down our street, trying to burn off his anger. I stepped out onto my front porch to watch him go. He made it exactly 2 blocks. I heard the engine start knocking from down the street. It was a rhythmic, painful clack, 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 followed by a massive, violent shudder. The car bucked like a wild horse, blew a massive cloud of foul-smelling white smoke out of the tailpipe, and ground to a sudden, humiliating halt right in the middle of the intersection. Rick stumbled out of the driver's side door, waving his arms in traffic, looking under the hood as smoke billowed up into his face. The engine was completely seized. The fuel pump, the injectors, the spark plugs, all ruined. Thousands of dollars in damage, all because he couldn't keep his hands off a $15 can of gas. I stood on my porch, took a deep breath of the fresh morning air, and smiled. Justice had never smelled so sweet. Now, for most people, destroying a thief's lawnmower and seizing their car engine would be enough. That is a solid 10 out of 10 revenge. But I told you at the beginning of this story that Rick was a parasite. And parasites usually leave a trail of slime behind them. After the engine incident, Rick's car sat dead on the street for days until the city finally towed it. He glared at me every time I saw him, but he never said a word. He knew, and he knew that I knew he knew. But my curiosity was piqued. What kind of guy is this brazen? I decided to do a little digging online. Public records are a beautiful thing. It took me about 20 minutes of searching the county court database to strike absolute gold. Rick wasn't just a petty gas thief. Rick had active, outstanding arrest warrants. Multiple of them, unpaid tickets, failure to appear in court, and some other minor misdemeanors. He was a wanted man, flying under the radar. I could have just called the non-emergency line and tipped them off. But where is the artistry in that? I wanted to serve him up on a silver platter, using his own identity. I went to the local sheriff's department website. They had a community outreach initiative, a sheriff's ride-along program designed to build trust between citizens and law enforcement. You just had to fill out an application with your name, address, and contact info, and they would run a standard background check before approving you to sit in the squad car. I filled out the application. Name, Rick. Address, Rick's exact home address. Phone number, Rick's phone number. Reason for applying. I am deeply interested in the law and want to get a closer look at how our brave officers apprehend criminals. I hit submit. 2 days later, I was watering my front lawn when a county sheriff's cruiser pulled slowly onto our street. It didn't stop at my house. It pulled right into Rick's driveway. 2 deputies got out, walked up to his porch, and knocked on the door. Rick answered, looking confused and aggressive. I couldn't hear the exact words exchanged, but I saw the moment the color drained entirely from his face. The deputies weren't there to give him a tour of the squad car. They were there to execute the warrants that had conveniently popped up when he requested a background check on himself. Within 3 minutes, Rick was in handcuffs, being guided into the back of the cruiser. He got his ride-along after all, just behind the cage. They say karma is a mirror. Whatever you put out into the world eventually reflects right back at you. Rick thought the world owed him everything. He thought he could step over boundaries, steal from his neighbors, and skate by without consequences. But in the end, it wasn't the police that initially brought him down, and it wasn't a screaming match across the fence. It was his own greed. He literally poisoned his own life, using the very thing he stole from me. And frankly, the irony of him getting arrested because he applied to hang out with the cops, that is a level of poetic justice you just can't write. If this story gave you chills, or if you were cheering when that engine seized up, do me a massive favor, smash that like button right now. It helps the channel more than you know. Now, I want to hear from you down in the comments. What's the most deeply satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed or carried out against a terrible neighbor? Let me know. I read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on the best revenge stories on the internet. Until next time, keep your gas cans safe and stay petty, my friends.